It's a historic moment for the people of Palestine. The United Nations, in a vote, has considerably given a go-ahead to the state of Palestine. And joining us for a discussion on this special show, To The Point today, is His Excellency Adili Shaban Sadeq. Thanks a lot for joining us here, sir. He's the ambassador of Palestine state in India. First of all, what's your first reaction when you get the report that the United Nations has finally given a recognition?
You know that we are now in a different and a new position, and the United Nations resolution to recognize Palestine as a state is, it will change the way of dealing with Israel, and to reaffirm about on the Palestinian right, and many benefit for the Palestinian people on the road of the peace, to achieve a peaceful resolution for the Palestinian problem. And it's based on the last United Nations resolution for Palestine, which Israel denied and is still denying them. So we have a new period with our struggle for independence and the peaceful resolution for the crisis in Middle East.
How would you describe, the diplomacy of Palestine in this entire episode, where you had countries like the US, Israel, very strongly lobbying against a vote for the people of Palestine, but still, an unprecedented number of favor for Palestine?
You know that the Israelis try to stop this track, the Palestinian track, while that was a very stupid position, because this stand is contrary to the de facto in about half of the world countries. Half of the world countries recognized Palestine as a state already from 1980 to 88.
Yes.
And unfortunately, and you know that some of the jokes would happen in the voting, that some of the Eastern European countries which abstained,
yes,
didn't vote for we have embassies, yes, in the status in their countries. They already recognized, but they abstained because of the American pressure on them, but abstained, not against. They were
yes,
not against.
But would you say abstain itself was, in a way, a favor, so to say, because the US and the Israel were very strongly lobbying against this vote? So abstinence itself could be read as, a favor.
Yeah,
vote.
there was, that some of the countries, some of the representatives of the countries in the United States, their stand don't compete with the de facto and the conscience of their people.
Yes.
Because, for instance, Czech Republic.
Yes.
We have an embassy in the Czech Republic as a state of Palestine. How did they vote? They didn't vote abstain, while we already have, and also Albania.
Yes.
And it is a Muslim countries. Yes. Albania and some of the countries from the non-alignment.
Yes.
Non-alignment movement, and they are already recognized in Palestine, but they abstain, while they didn't influence in the total result of the voting. Total result of the voting was 138 yes, nations voted for us. 9 against. 2 of them, Israel itself and United States. Yes. And to get his heritage. That is very shameful for United States. Yes. That is very shameful. That is what we know, that, but we have to, as I told you, that many benefit.
Yes, I was coming to that.
Yeah.
It's given the observer state status. Now, what does it really mean? How does it really help the Palestinian cause of nationhood?
One of the main, the most important instruments for this resolution that have changed the equation. Okay. Equation is the fact that the status of Palestine as a state, you know, that grant the right to take legal action against Israel and at the International Criminal Court.
Yes.
That is what made Israel reject and ironically, you know, that the British government refused to vote with us. Yes. Because they offered a condition, okay, on us not to go to the criminal court. Okay. So they admit that Israel practice a criminal policy and kill, and they make crimes. So they want us not to go to complain to the criminal court. You know that's one of them.
Yes, there are a number of question marks over, you know, the current President Mahmoud Abbas on whether, you know, Abbas would consider going to the International Criminal Court against Israel at some point. You think if a case comes up, if, you know, they're able to really build up a case, there is a very strong possibility that Palestine could consider going to the criminal court?
Of course, we have to go. If there is a criminal action, we'll go to the criminal court. That is because we are a patient for a long time. And now we have to go. The Israelis close the road to the peace. Yes. By the settlement activities, by killing, by attacks, by the blockade of Gaza, by the blockade of the West Bank, by the blockade by separate wall, yes, in West Bank, by confiscation of the land, by everything.
You want to talk about the latest ruling that's come in Israel a day after the vote, which has allowed 3,000 more houses to be built in settlement areas.
Okay, they said so, but now by the international law and by the recognition of United Nations, there is, you know what is the symbol meaning for this step for us? Yes. Because we put the geographical and political framework for Palestine, yes, for independent Palestine. The border is the lines before the war of 1967, okay, including Jerusalem, East Jerusalem. Yes. And the political regime is PLO and the Palestinian movement, yes, national movement. Yes. Now, any settlement, okay, which overcomes and go to, that is illegal and illegitimate, yes, settlement. So they have to dismantle them because they have no the right to make, to put settlement in occupied state and in the land of others. That is what it means.
Okay. And the European Union has now recently also said that you know, if they've condemned Israel's, you know, decision to have more settlements in these areas, the latest, yes, decision. How do you see, you know, the role that European Union could really play from here?
Union, you know that about half of the European Union countries voted for us. Okay. And they are refused the American proposal to stop their assistance to Palestinian Authority. Okay. And also they condemn the settlement activities in Palestine. Okay. And also they recognize the Palestinian, the right of the Palestinian self-determination, and they support our goal to achieve the peace and the resolution of based on two states.
Two-nation theory,
yes. Two-nation state. Yes. Now we see this step, recognition of Palestine as a state, is a step toward the peace. Yes. But they, because they have a plan, they intend to enlarge the occupation, okay, and to occupation to be permanent, okay, and they want to overgoing in everything, and the hostiles also, they don't want, they see this as a declaration of the war.
Okay.
Because they know that will reach us with them to the peace. They don't want the peace. They close, as I told you, they close the road to be in front of the peace, yes, activities, effort, and also they close the track of the resistance. They don't want the Palestinians to resist or to make peace. Yes. That is their problem, because they are, you know, in their mind, the ruling parties in Israel now, they have a different mental, you know, that their men are racial. They were against, okay, the peace from the beginning, okay, while they were in the opposition.
Yes.
They killed.
His Excellency will talk about the internal situation.
Mentality,
yes.
And they killed Ishaq Rabin, our partner in the peace process, and they killed Yasser Arafat also. Because yes, they don't
come to the local
they are crazy.
issues.
They are crazy. They will defeated, and they will crack down, and they will be shamed.
Okay, we'll come back to that entire aspect of what really is happening inside that entire region between Israel and both West Bank and Gaza. We'll take a short break now, His Excellency. Time for a short break now. We'll come back with lots more on this entire development in the Israel-Palestine region. Welcome back. We're talking to His Excellency Adili Shaban Sadeq. He's the ambassador for Palestine in India. Thanks a lot for speaking with us. We've been talking about, you know, this entire the impact of the UN vote and what that really means for the people of Palestine. Now, domestically, if we talk about what really is the equation on the ground, you've been talking about how Israel and their domestic politics has an impact on the peace process between the two countries. How would you describe the domestic political pressure that Prime Minister Netanyahu is facing?
Yes, Justice, they have a problem. You know that the Israeli people aware that this policy will reach Israel to an overwhelming international isolation, that you know that. And many from the Israelis also know that Netanyahu and the ruling parties try to take them out of the discussion and conversation of the social and economic problems inside Israel, and to open the circle of the war. And from time to time they go to the war. When they went to the war, everything closed, all the conversation closed, and the discussion about the economic and social problem. And on the TV, only they follow and see Netanyahu, Lieberman. They try to, you know, to make them their chances better. Now they have little majority. But you know that isolation, because the world will ask them, yes, where is the peace? We need the peace. Yes. And you know that there is something, a process, a growing process inside Israel, is close, you know, the elite of the Israeli in the academy society and everywhere in Israel, they were close to the peace, close to the Palestinian stand. You know, for instance, all the chief sections of history in Israel is support the Palestinian right.
Okay.
And they contract the official story for the conflict from the beginning.
All right.
Now many things in the media and everywhere in Israel. Now that is, I think that this period will not be long because you know that everything is closed. What you want from the Palestinians? The Palestinians tell the Israelis, if we look for peace. If you want one multinational state, okay. That is, they consider this like the nightmare, you know, that they refuse it because they will lose the democracy, because it will be the majority of the Israelis. So the solution of the two states also refused by them. They didn't stop the settlement activities. They want to take all the Palestinian land and to put us in small circles to live, only to live. And the sheep workers inside this circle. That is not acceptable. And they will not success in this track. You know that we will refuse this and resist this by popular resistance, by everything. So I think the discussion and the conversation inside the Israeli society will be for our interest.
There's also the other argument in this entire local equation which says that there is still this problem between Fatah as well as the Hamas factions. They're still not able to come together on many issues. How would you say, what's your perspective on the fact that the United Nations vote has happened? Could this really be the beginning of a new phase where maybe the two factions can work together?
No, that was an essential problem before 5 years. Now, after Hamas agreed with Israel on the ceasefire, long-term ceasefire, and after they became more realistic in the crisis, I think the way is open for the reconciliation and will be, I think we will reach the reconciliation deal within 2 weeks. Now they support the Mr. Mahmoud Abbas,
the president, of course,
the Palestinian president, in his mission to United Nations, and they support him. And now there is no problem, big problem between us and the Egyptian authority. Also, they intend to close this file, and no essential. Now there is no essential problem.
So, what is the mood? Are the people? Is the people's, the flavor of all of them coming together? Is that something that's driving both of them to come together?
Nearly 99% from the Palestinian people want them to together and unified.
Okay. There's also this other contentious issue of right to return that that has been spoken about, and Mahmoud Abbas has not really taken a very strong stand on which side he wants to be. How do you look at this?
You know, that is the right of return under the United Nations Resolution 194.
Yes.
That is not talking about the group and the Palestinian people to go back to his country, home country.
Okay.
This resolution is talking about the return of every person, the right of every Palestinian person to go to his house, to his farm in Palestine. That is a personal right for every Palestinian. Any authority or political regime, despite of his status, how it get sovereignty, yes, this can't surrender the right of the personal citizen. The personal citizen, if I have an apartment or in London, okay, Queen of United Kingdom can't not give this apartment to another one. That is a personal right for every Palestinian. So we can't see the political statement about this nonsense without any meaning, because the right of return, that is a personal right for every Palestinian. And there are courts in the world, there are courts in Israel itself, yes, everything. We have to resume our struggle to get our right at the level of the personal Palestinians.
So we have spoken about, the various aspects of this entire process, especially after the UN vote. Now, there's also this question of diplomatically, where does this state of Palestine really see itself? What's the kind of role, according to you, that the people of Palestine can really play in that region over the next few years?
The people of Palestine, maybe you followed what's happening in Palestine. They were happy with this step, with this new status, because now we are from a state, yes, recognized by United Nations. Yes. We were a state recognized by non-alignment and Arab countries and some of the Arab and some of the friend countries. Yes. Now we are recognized by United Nations. So that will make the Palestinian play a better role in the area, and where diplomacy will be upgraded also. Okay. And some of the countries like India, we obtained the status of a state already. Yes. And we have a good relation, and India was a co-sponsor for the draft of the resolution, and the Indian ambassador to United Nations made great effort to collect many nations representative to be co-sponsor and to vote with us. The Indian diplomacy was active and positive with the Palestinian cause in United Nations.
There's often a lot of criticism for Indian diplomacy, especially over the last few years or so, when there there's an understanding that perhaps India is moving a little closer towards Israel, and perhaps India's commitment to Palestine is really shifting. Would you say that this entire episode, especially the UN vote, is also something that reaffirms your faith?
Yeah, no, that didn't influence the relationship between India and Palestine.
Okay, so those are a bit separate.
Now, that is the language of this century, yes, to make the balanced policy and to give a chance for partnership in economic partnership and technical partnership. You know that we from our side, from Palestine, we consider the bad and the criminal terrorism caused responsible on some steps, Indian steps, because the Israelis pretended that they are sad because of the terrorist attacks against the innocent in India here, while they are not we are sad, not them, because these actions, you know, that is against our Palestinian interest, yes, and against Palestinian cause. At least in India, these actions withdrew the attention of the Indian government from the international policy and to intensify on the internal policy and to fight the terrorism. They completely against us. So we strongly condemned the terrorists in India and everywhere. Okay. You know, and everywhere. Absolutely. So I think that India, the Israelis came here, pretended that they have good experience in fighting terrorism and like this, and make, you know, contract with weapons and some technical equipment and like this. And I think that India is taking useful from this, and they try to take some technology and something other. And Israel also entered to India and made partnership with some government of a state in India. But that is not bother us, you know that? We don't refuse this. We need also India to look for its interest, but the balanced and good position of India didn't influence.
All right, thanks a lot. On that note, we can end this interview. Thanks a lot for speaking with us. Hopefully peace will return in the Israel-Palestine region, and hopefully the aspirations of the people of Palestine will be met by the international community. Thanks a lot for joining us here on this episode of To The Point. Keep watching.